Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Today we're working on the Mark IV King's Cobra, and we are getting all the body panels put on. We're getting like rear taillights put on. We're working on the trunk. So let me take you around to the back and we'll see exactly what's going on. All right, I have been working the last 2 nights on the car, and you can see I've already got quite a bit done. Now, I just posted on social media about these holes here, and I'll get back to those later. But let's open the trunk, see what's going on in here. You can see we've got the trunk deck lid mounted, and you know, I'm not going to trim any panel more than it has to be. I'm not going to clearance the body any more than I absolutely have to at this point, because I want to give whoever's doing the body work as much material as they can have and still allow all of the panels to function like they should, so that the car owner is an inconvenience. Meaning I want the doors to close, I want them to open, I want the trunk deck lid to open and close. Same thing with the hood. So we're doing very minimal clearancing, and one of the things that I'll point out here is right here, there's a big bump right here. And even though I've got the hood fitting pretty good, I'm probably gonna come in here, I'm gonna grind this down a little bit just so this portion here is flat and this portion is here is flat. More like it looks over on this side of the car. This I am not gonna touch, I'm gonna leave it just the way it is. But you can see I've got a couple of bumpers mounted, one on each side here, and one up here behind each of the hinges. And that's just so that the trunk deck lid kind of falls in place in the car where it needs to be, but I'm not going to put the weather seal around there, because I'm going to let the owner, he can decide if he wants to put it on, he can pull the bumpers off, he can put the weather seal on. I don't think he's going to be driving in the rain a whole lot, but I want everything to function. So I want it to close and, you know, and open, just like I said. If I put the weather seal on there, it's one-time use. So that means the owner's going to have to go out and buy brand new weather seal, you know, next year or the year after when he has it painted. If he decides that he's going to keep it in gel coat for longer, like, you know, 12 years like me, then he can go ahead and put it on. But I don't want to sacrifice any of the parts that were included in his kit that I don't have to, that he'll be able to use later when he decides to get the car painted. Another good area where I'm going to clearance the body a little bit are these areas at the door. So you can see there's some high spots right here where the mold lines are. This is basically where the mold comes apart when the bodies are produced. So we're going to grind all this smooth so the door is closed properly. There's one here at the back. There's one here at the front. We're going to do the same thing on the other side of the car. In the hood area, there's none of those seams, because the whole entire hood opening is pretty much smooth. So I won't have to do any of that there. I will probably have to clearance the hood a little bit in some areas, just so that it fits down inside that opening well enough so that we can get it latched and that the body and the hood are on the same plane. But other than that, we're going to leave the body and the body panels alone for the most part. So in here, the trunk deck lid is mounted. Like I said, we've got the bumpers in. We've also got the trunk struts installed in the car. So those are active, they're working. So the trunk struts will hold the trunk lid up in place when we got it open. I finished up the wiring so that I was able to put our cover plate here, our access cover. We sell these on our Facebook page. You can order one through our email. I think these are $35 if I'm not mistaken, plus shipping. We ship them flat. You guys can bend these things to fit your trunk deck lid. And generally what I do is I just put it over my thigh and I just kind of gently press on it until I've got the shape that I need in order for it to fit up in here. So we've got that done. It's riveted in place. We've got the latch on for the trunk as well. So this will drop down into place. It'll latch. It's a little loose right now, meaning there's some movement in it. I don't want to make everything so tight that the body makes creaking sounds when you're driving it down the road. So we're leaving a little bit of gap on all this stuff. And I'm going to do the same thing with the doors. The door latches will hold the doors shut, but we want to make sure that everything has a gap to it so it's not, you know, making these horrendous creaking noises. I don't know if you've ever heard that noise of fiberglass on fiberglass when something rubs together, but it's just a hideous sound. And we really don't want that for the car owner. So that's kind of where I'm at on the trunk. And then of course the cherry on top was that I was able to put the IE427 license plate on the car. Those are also available if you want these. I think these are like $12 to $15. I have to look, but I've got a bunch of these. So if you want one, again, they'll ship flat in a flat rate envelope and we can send those out to you. I'm working on the taillights right now. So if you saw our post on Facebook and Instagram, I showed you how to use a piece of rubber hose on the end of your hole saw that just happens to fit into the hole that is provided by the factory when they do the cutouts. So we just stick that in that existing hole with a 1-inch hole saw. We make it bigger and now it's ready to accept taillights, and the connectors that we have here, the weather pack connectors, will fit through those holes with no fuss, no muss. We'll get those mounted up, and then I'll probably bring you guys back and show you the completed rear of the car, and I'll try to get the carpet vacuumed in the trunk as well, so we pretty that all up. Of course, the question always becomes, how do you fit a connector like this through a hole in the body that's only this big? And of course, the internet's already spoken. I posted this on Facebook and Instagram when I was working on the car, and of course, the first question is, well, can't you just pull the connectors from, you know, pull the pins out of the connectors and feed it through that way? And I agree, you can. But then what happens when the car owner here decides, you know, next year or the following year to get the car painted and he wants to pull the taillights off? What's he going to do? Cut the wires? De-pin the wires up inside the fender? You can see there's not a whole lot of room in there. I mean, I could stick the camera up in there and you could see that even if we pulled the wheel and tire off, we're still going to have a splash shield mounted in here when we return the car to the owner. And sure, he could remove the splash shield, but it's really hard to get in when your access is from here all the way into here with a pin removal tool to get that connector loose. So about your only alternative is that, at that point, is to cut the wires. And then now you're repinning the connector when you put it in the next time. So it's just easier to make it bigger. Now I'm going to show you a little trick to make that bigger without just destroying the body or using, you know, a step bit that's big enough and just creating all kinds of dust. Either way, you're going to create a little bit of dust, but we try to keep the dust down as much as we can here in the shop because the dust goes everywhere and then it gets all over everything, including our nice finished interior. So let me grab some tools and I'm going to show you how we're going to drill that hole without making a complete mess. All right, remember all this 1/4-inch hose that Factory 5 gives you in the kit that you don't use for anything? It's actually a carryover from the donor era of the car. So if you order a complete kit, a Mark IV for instance, you still get this in your kit. Well, cut yourself a piece that's about 4 inches long. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually put it over the pilot bit on the hole saw. And that's going to take up the gap between that hole that's in the back of the body and the actual pilot bit itself, and allow us to drill a nice clean hole through the fiberglass. All right, again, back here at the back of the car, and you can see that this hose fits right in there. Then we're going to go ahead and drill this out. And there you have it. So we got the holes drilled out for connectors on both sides. The lights are going to cover those holes. No fuss, no muss. And we'll be able to get the back end of this car pretty much wrapped up. It is the next day, and I am going to make a little bit of a recommendation to all of you that are running the single rear tail light on a Mark IV, a Mark V, even on a Mark III. If you're sourcing your taillights from, I think it's Pacific United, you may want to change out the hardware, the actual nuts that they use on the taillights, because they are no longer locking hardware. They don't even provide you a locking washer. So what happens is, as you're taking up the cushion in this rubber seal that goes around the outside, the rubber compresses, and over time the rubber's going to get hard, and those standard nuts are just going to loosen up and then possibly fall off. So it's really hard to get Loctite up inside there as you're putting them in. I guess you could put the Loctite on them before you slide them, the studs through, but you're probably going to pick up a lot of fiberglass dust and everything else. I went by the hardware store this morning. I picked up some locking nuts. So these are just M4 by 0.7 is the thread pitch. It came 8 in a pack. I needed 4. I think they were $1.88 with tax. I think it was just over $2. So I would suggest that you get those, put those on the taillights, and not worry about your hardware coming loose over time. So we've got those all on, secured for what is going to be our final time. Of course, the owner will probably take those off when he has the body painted, but they're going to be on there for a while. I'm working on the under dash panels. I got them just about done. The only thing I haven't done is plug the reset button for the clock in. But you can see we had all these powder coated. There was discussion when we were talking about powder coat about possibly doing some of the panels black. I made an audible in the final seconds of the game, and I decided that it was just better to get everything powder coated the same color. So all of our panels are the same color that the owner picked out earlier. You can see we've got a reset button over here. That's going to be for the speedometer, and the reset button over here for the clock. There is a jack for the back of the tachometer, but it is only for adjusting the cycles. So if you're running a standard distributor, you just leave it alone. If you're running a Coyote, you have to change it, and some of the other mod motors, you have to change the setting on the tachometer in order to make it function properly. But we know ours is working, and so we're not going to bother plugging a push button into there. It just doesn't make any sense. So we'll have one for the speedometer, because you can do a triple odometer and all that kind of stuff on the speedometer. A lot of people don't know that. So we've got that on one side, and then we've got the clock on the other. And I tried to put them up out of the way so that the owner's knees wouldn't be hitting them all the time and resetting them. Over on this side, we've got our USB port right here. It also has a digital display on it of the actual car voltage. We didn't need that, but you know, it was one of the lesser expensive jacks available. I think it had both USB-A and USB-C on there. So I think there's some USB-Cs on the side, and then standard USB-As on the top and the bottom. And then we've got our 12 volt outlet there too. So that's just, you know, the standard old cigarette or cigar lighter type outlet that you can plug your GPS or anything else in. Now most of the GPS are coming with a USB as well. So you may find that you don't even need that. But I like to always have it in there, because A lot of guys like to put a small air compressor that plugs into that style of outlet in their trunk, just in case, they got to air up a tire or something. So I like having those. I have one of those in Slytherin. I don't have any of the USBs because I built Slytherin so long ago. I never bothered putting a USB in it. But anyways, I think I'm going to start working on the nose aluminum next. So I've got the nose aluminum right here. I've got to get all of the bulb seal all the way around it and get it ready to be installed. I don't know whether I'm going to get that done tonight. It's already getting kind of late, and I've had a long day. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get to that tomorrow. Nope, can't do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. I'm going to spend the day with my mom. So this will have to wait till Monday. I believe we left off Saturday with mention of the nose aluminum. So I went ahead and I got the nose aluminum put in the car tonight, and I've got it all riveted in place. It looks actually really good. I still have the cardboard in there to protect the radiator. We can actually slide that up out of the top. I just got to make sure I do it before I put the hood on, because that makes it just a little bit harder. But so this is what it all looks like inside there. So you can see how clean that ends up making everything by making that all one piece. And you can see that we've got bulb seal all the way around it, so that's going to protect the radiator. There's also bulb seal up inside here against the body, so that's protected as well. When the owner decides to get the car painted, it's no big deal. Drill out 5 rivets on each side. The nose aluminum will fold in towards the center, and then that can come out of there. What else did I do tonight? Oh, the taillights are in. And I'm working on closing out all the stuff in the back of the car. But taillights are in now. So you guys saw me drilling the holes for those on Saturday, I think, as well. So the taillights are in, and they are wired in as well. So I went ahead and I popped the connectors for those together. So that one is right back there. And then I had a time on Saturday trying to find a piece of rubber hose. Now I went through all the parts that the car owner had dropped off when he dropped the car off, and I didn't inventory the parts because they were basically whatever he had left at that point in the build. So I think there was maybe 4 or 5 boxes, and a couple of bigger parts that were kind of on the side, the windshield, stuff like that. And so I didn't see that the hose was missing, but this car owner bought a base kit, and honestly, I don't even know what the base kit comes with anymore. Other than the extra stuff that they still throw into the complete kit as part of the base kit package, I don't know if that rubber hose is even included for a base kit anymore. So this car owner bought all his fuel components from someone else, not from Factory 5. And so I don't know if he even got that hose. Now, I sent him an email or a text on Saturday. He got back with me on Sunday, said he would look for it. He looked for it, couldn't find it, but he said he thought he had seen it. So I don't know. It doesn't matter at this point. I actually rummaged through the parts that I have upstairs on the mezzanine. I found a section of hose, because generally in the kit, they give you about a 1-foot-long piece of this stuff, and you can see you only need about 6 inches. So I usually cut it, and then I hold on to the other half of the hose. Now, it was so hot on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I did not want to go upstairs to look for that piece of hose. So I waited until this afternoon. It has cooled down almost 30 degrees in the span of 24 hours. And so I was able to go up into the mezzanine after work today, rummage through some of the boxes because a lot of the stuff is still packed away. And I found 2 pieces of hose. One was an unmolested piece, hadn't been cut. And then I found this piece, which I think I ended up still cutting off maybe about 2 inches of hose. I think I've got it in the trash, but I'm not going to dig through the trash to show you guys. Anyways, I used the clamps that came with the Le Mans cap, because the Le Mans cap is shipped with a couple of clamps and some mounting hardware and a washer and a nut and a through bolt, a machine screw, so that you can ground the entire system. Now, in the instructions, I believe they only have you ground from the actual filler cap, so the Le Mans cap, to the chassis of the car. I go one step further and I ground the gas tank, because the gas tank is kind of isolated from the chassis. It has plastic isolators that go into the square tube that cushion the tank when you bolt everything tight. And you've got a liner underneath the tank that's plastic that the actual gas tank straps hold the gas tank up with. So essentially it's not touching the chassis metal to metal anywhere. And even on the filler tube, there's a rubber donut. So the only place that you would possibly pick up a ground would be on your strap right here. So the strap makes contact with the filler tube or filler neck, but I painted ours. Now paint sometimes will, sometimes won't conduct electricity, but I just like to go one step further. So if you look, I have a ground that goes right to the bolt that holds the bracket in. Then I've got a through bolt up here with a machine screw and a nylon lock nut on the back side here to ground the chassis. And then that goes up to the supplied hardware up here so that all these things are tied together. Now, I got an interesting question from one of my buddies. He actually runs the hose shop that I have all my fuel hoses made at and my power steering hoses, stuff like that. And he says to me, there's a ground inside the that hose. And I'll be damned, I looked at it, and sure enough, when I cut it on the bandsaw, you can see just like in this one area, there's this copper showing. And he says you can actually pull that out even after you've cut it and fold it over, because I guess it must be like spiral wound inside the hose. And then you can use that as your ground. My problem again is that it really does nothing to ground the tank because of that bushing, the donut that goes in there to seal the tank at the filler neck. So I think it's better just belt and suspenders type of viewpoint on this, to do a secondary ground or bond so that everything's tied in together, because the fiberglass bodies tend to produce a lot of static electricity on their own. And so anything you can do to mitigate a spark when you're fueling up, to me, is just, one more layer of safety. So this is the way I choose to do it. You do it your own way. But I think this is by far the safest way to do your fuel filler neck at the back of the car. Now, I've got the splash shields out, and I'm probably going to start working on that later today here in the back. And then I've got some pieces that I cut. I actually cut them on the Beverly shear. I cut these two pieces that are going to go one on each side. And they're going to fill in this gap right here. So these are made for here. And you can see I got to cut this one down a little bit. I just used my template and made it long. The edge of this right here is going to get bulb seal, and then it'll get pop riveted in there. And that's just going to seal off that area. You can see how you can see light through there. If I put my hand here, you can see my hand. That's just going to help to seal off that area. Now, I'm thinking I may make a video and just make it available to the car owner. And I'm just going to walk around the car. I'm going to tell him everything that has to be disconnected, taken out, when he goes and gets ready for paint. Normally we take care of all that stuff, and I have this mental checklist that I go through to make sure that I have everything out before we pull the body at Jeff Miller's. Jeff isn't doing the paint on this one. So I'm just wondering if that's something you guys are interested in, because it'll be probably, just before we send this car home, I will just go through the entire car and say, the nose aluminum has to be taken out, the headlights have to be taken out, the marker lights, the roll bar, and just do a point by point on everything that needs to be addressed before the body can come back off of the car. If that's something you guys are interested in, let me know, because I'm probably going to just make it a private video for just the car owner. But if there's enough people interested in what, what has to transpire in order to get it ready to go to the painter, then I'm more than happy to make the video available to everybody. But let me know. I think that's where I'm going to end this one. I'm going to pick up next time, probably at the back of the car, when I've got all that stuff taken care of and we're moving forward in the car. So I think I may either do the doors next, or I may tackle the front hood of the car. I'm trying to do everything methodically. I tend to work from the back of the car to the front, or the front to the back. It just so happened this time that I had a lot of stuff that I could do in the back, and I couldn't necessarily do a bunch of stuff in the front because I was waiting on powder coated panels. So I'm trying to make sure that nothing gets left up in the air or has a question mark, like, did I tighten everything? This way, if I'm at the back of the car, I can address everything in the back of the car. Then I can move forward, address everything in or around the cockpit, and then address everything at the front of the car. And that way, I'm sure that everything got the proper attention. If you're enjoying the content here, as always, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.